Welcome to Grazora Live, where we're helping small business owners make the changes they need to make in their life and their business so that they can go from being crushed by their business to having a business that's going to support them and help propel them towards their dreams and their goals for life. Brett, how is your social media?
It's slow.
Yeah.
It's slow. But not my current focus at the moment.
Oh, okay. So, why would you choose to not make social media your current focus?
Um, because
Isn't
of
that a
other
big
commitments.
mistake? Like everybody says you have to be on social media to be successful.
Well, it
And you have
depends
to
on what
post 10
what you
times
mean
a
by
day.
success.
10 times a day per platform, right? That's the common statement. So how
I
can you
mean,
justify not being on social media that much?
because I don't have room for it. I mean, I have enough other things going on, and you can only do what you can do in a given day, and without prioritizing, then you'll end up getting nothing done. So I prioritized other things ahead of social media.
100%. You've got to know where you want to get to, or else you'll be so busy doing nothing that you get nothing done.
The social media will come. Like I'm not concerned about that. It will happen, and this is a piece of it, but it's not the main driver.
I don't know if you ever remember hearing there's an old song, I don't know if it was from the 70s or when, but they say if you ever get annoyed, you can always be self-employed and work hard doing nothing every day, or something like that. And I think
Hmm.
so many people don't have a clear direction when they're self-employed or when they're running a small business. So they do work so hard at nothing all day, and they hear this piece of advice over here, and then they start chasing that piece of advice, and then someone else is like, no, it's over, the answer's over here, and so they run over there, and it's just a disaster for them. And one of the main things that I think that you do well is saying my goal is up here, so I'm going to put blinders on, I'm going to cut out everything else, and I'm going to chase till I hit that goal. And that's one of the secrets of being able to convert that business from a disaster to actually supporting you, right?
It is, and I didn't even tell you what the topic was today, did I?
No, you haven't told me yet. I have no
But
idea
that
what
was
we're
like
talking about.
that was like perfect because that's exactly what I want to talk about.
Oh, cool.
So so last week we talked about the replacement ladder and how a business owner can go from being completely overwhelmed, not having time because they don't know what really matters, and they're spending all their time doing $10 an hour activities instead of the activities that actually really bring in the money, and they're not leveling themselves up. I mean,
and
I mean,
and to bounce back, a $10 activity, we're basically saying it's an activity that someone, you could pay them $10 to do that activity, or $10 an hour, and they can handle that
yes,
activity. So just want to make sure anyone who didn't listen or watch last time still is following along.
well, yeah, and so that I mean, because every business is limited by the owner. Like the owner is the ultimate bottleneck, and the businesses that are able to scale, the owner gets out of the way so that they are no longer a limiting factor. The business doesn't depend on them in any way, shape, or form. But when you're going from a small business to become one of those businesses, you've got to level yourself up as an owner. And that's where that replacement ladder comes in. When you do things in the proper sequence, then you're able to climb that ladder and get yourself out of being the bottleneck in the business. And um, and
Can
so
I can I
that's
bounce in for just a
yeah.
second? So replacement strategy is really good, and a lot of people have used this to get out. One of the things that I want to call out is this whole idea with AI. There's people predicting all kinds of things like no one's going to have a job in 10 years, or no, 30% of new college grads won't get a job, they won't be able to find a job. One of the reasons for that
Hey, I felt that
is
in 2010.
right. Yeah, back then
Yeah,
they didn't even have AI for us, but man,
we've experienced college grads not being able to get a job, and especially not the job that they were promised.
yeah, yeah, for sure. But one of the reasons why they're saying that there's going to be this lack of jobs is the idea that you can have a computer do these tasks, you can have AI do some of these tasks, and instead of costing $10 an hour, you may be able to be paying that AI 20 cents an hour, 50 cents an hour, $1 an hour, and now you've reduced your cost from someone you're paying 10 down to 1. Now, AI can't do everything, and it will only do chunks of some of those jobs, and you still need some oversight. But if you had 10 AI agents all working and one person overseeing those 10, that's kind of like the traditional idea of a manager overseeing 10 people. But I've seen a lot of small business owners are stressing so much about, I've got to start using AI and I don't know what or how or where. And we're still in the early phase of that. So if you as a business owner don't know today, it's okay. Just have that in the back of your mind. That's the strategy that's going to come in, is we can take this little job, hand it to AI and have it do that one job. And we'll take bigger and bigger chunks and hand it to AI. So replacement strategies working with humans, but also with computers, and now with AI as well.
Right. And so building on that, going from you're so let's say you're a small business owner and you're using that replacement strategy. You're figuring out what you do every day. You're prioritizing the tasks that you actually enjoy doing, that are bringing in the big bucks, and all the ones that are lower value activities, you're delegating those away, and you're slowly replacing yourself and working yourself out of your job, or at least out of parts of your job, every month, every so many months, and that's how you grow. Like some of the best CEOs replace themselves in their job every 6 months. They're not doing the same things today that they were doing 6 months ago. They're changing who reports to them. They're changing how they handle their meetings. They're growing so the business can grow with them. They're not just staying static. And so, assuming you're doing that, how do you figure out where you really spend your time? Like, how do you figure out what those big dollar activities are?
Hmm.
And I'm just going to share a couple of experiences that I've had, on buying companies or helping other people look at companies to buy, and helping through that evaluation process. Um, so there was a company that I looked at, um, with some other people, and went in, and one of the first questions is, why are the current owners trying to sell?
Hmm. That's a good thing to figure out, right?
It's like what's going on here? Is there like a skeleton in the closet that they're trying to hide from, or is there a legitimate reason? Well, in this particular case, it happened to be that there was a majority owner and minority owner. It was only 2% difference, so 51-49%. The minority owner had a particular vision for where they wanted to take the company. The majority owner had a particular vision for how they wanted the company to operate. And those visions did not align at all. One wanted to grow, the other one was happy just doing what they were doing. Didn't want to invest, didn't want to do anything else. And it created a rift. And the older owner, and I think it was this, I know for a fact the older owner didn't feel like he could continue to operate the company without the younger owner, without the minority owner. And yet the minority owner must have felt the same way, because he didn't just offer to buy the older owner out. Of course, there was some family dynamic and different things going on, so there may have been some other, extraneous circumstances. But looking at this company, it's like, okay, first check, they're not aligned. So that can be one of the very first checks for you in your business. If you don't have a vision for yourself, if you're not aligned with business partners, if you have them, if you're not aligned with your team isn't aligned on that vision, if they can't say what that vision is with you when you're not in the room, then that's one of the very first areas you need to look at fixing. You really, really need to establish that vision for what your business is, where it's going, and how you're going to make things happen. And it's one of the things that any investor who's looking at a business does. Like, what is the vision for this business? It's why they look at doing the investment. They want to know how that investment will grow over time. And so if you think investors come in and don't have a vision for the asset for the business that they're buying, then maybe some don't, but in my experience, everyone does. They know what they want that business to do. And so then the next thing is, you look at the deal. You look at the deal. Do the numbers work? Does it make sense? Do the values work? Is the price you have to pay match your other alternatives of spending your dollars for this business? Is it cash flowing enough? Is it profitable enough for the value that you're getting? Are the assets actually worth what they're being offered at? And you can do the same thing in your own business. Are you really, really getting the profit that you need? Are you, and not just what you need, but is it comparable to what your other alternative uses of your money and time are? And if not, you got to look at ways to change that. So the next thing, as again, I think this investor frame is really important for business owners, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing Grazora for, is to be able to help business owners essentially be the investor in the business they created, to be able to step outside of it, not have that business being dependent on them, and be able to act more like an investor. So the next thing we look at is like, okay, so how well is the business being operated, and where can we bring our own experience and expertise to make things better? So if we're confident on the vision, and if the old owners are going away, then there's no vision issue, because we can install our own. If you don't have a vision, put your own in. If we're confident that it's fair value, that like, yes, these numbers work, then it's like, okay, so then the expertise comes in. Well, one business that I was looking at, it was, I guess I'll just share the number. It was doing about $3.5 million a year on average in revenue, and they had 11 production employees, people that actually produced what this company made. And every single one of those employees was what I refer to as a full artisan. They did every step of building what they made, from like they took the plans, and then they went and made all the way through to the finished product.
So someone handed them the plan for what needed to get built.
Well, no, there was actually a stack of plans.
Oh, okay.
And then each person would go through and they'd pick which one they wanted to work on in whatever order. So it didn't matter what order they came out in.
Yep.
They would pick the one they wanted.
Had to go find the raw goods.
Yep. They'd go find the raw goods in the yard.
Bring them into their space.
Yep.
And then they'd have to work on the raw goods to transform those raw goods into what the blueprint said. And they were responsible to figure it all out and do everything.
Yeah. So that means
artist is a good name for what these guys were, because they literally were creating everything on their own.
They had all they had was the blueprints, and then there were raw materials in the yard, and they had to bring
rolling over in his grave.
Who's that?
Henry Ford would be rolling over in his grave.
And so seeing that, it's like, okay, this is a profitable company, and yet that's running completely inefficiently. Another thing that I thought was hilarious.
Let's pause there for a second, because that's critical. You said something that is so powerful. It was a profitable company. And with this giant inefficiency, that's huge, because so many business owners feel like they have to get everything fixed and they have to do everything right. And yet that's not the case. It's just these incremental improvements. And there's always a new opportunity to make something a little bit better.
Right. Well, when we went in, we actually made some pretty heavy improvements, but we also knew how to put those improvements in place.
Yeah, it wasn't your first rodeo when you got into this one. Yeah.
And so what we did with that particular aspect of the business is we took them from being artisans and we put in a process flow. So we had, without adding any personnel, keeping the exact same people that were there, we essentially gave each one piece of that production process. And so one person was responsible for collecting the materials. Another person was responsible for prepping the materials. Another person was actually responsible for putting the materials together. And then another person was responsible for doing the final inspections and making sure everything was ready to be shipped. I mean, so the analogy that might work for a lot of people is, I mean, imagine if your package delivery guys with Amazon or whoever, if they had to go collect whatever it was that you ordered, pack it into a box, load it into their van, and then deliver it to your house. It's
Yeah.
like there would be no such thing as same day delivery.
Right. Let alone 2 hour.
Yeah, let alone 2 hour. And even worse, they had to go get the purchase order from the computer from the order that you made and then figure out where to get the stuff, like, so it was, you can imagine, seeing it on the abstract and from the outside, it makes it look very inefficient. But I guarantee you, there are inefficiencies just like that, just that extreme in your own business.
But so many people can't see them. I was just talking to someone in the trades the other day, and he said, "Yeah, that kind of stuff works really well, except for," and then he said his industry, and I was like, "Well, you're right. If that's your mindset, then you'll never find any new efficiencies to gain. But if you change your mindset and believe it can work for you, you'll start seeing the opportunities." And then we were able to have a really good discussion about all of the opportunities within his very specific niche in the trades that could have far more efficiencies. And I think he was blown away by that.
Yeah. Yeah, and most people are when they like, and that's really what it takes for a business owner to level up, is to have those limiting beliefs be challenged, and them willing to be humble enough to throw them out and adopt a more powerful belief.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And so anyway, that's how we fix that one. Another thing that happened in this particular business is, we were curious, how hard is it going to replace the owners? And so, you want to look, what are they doing? Well, one of the owners was mainly responsible for talking to customers and, um, scheduling delivery of the orders. Well, how did he find out when he needed to start scheduling delivery? He went out into the yard and he took one of the key components that they would need to finish part of that job and took it into his office.
Just have piles of parts in your office.
They didn't have that many projects going on at once, so it wasn't piles and piles, but still. Um, and so his guys, when they got to whatever particular, part of the project that required that component, they'd have to look all over the yard. And when they couldn't find it, then they would finally come into his office and look for it.
Literally doing a scavenger hunt or an Easter egg hunt with his employees.
And so when
I
so then what
wonder
he
I
knew,
wonder how many over the course of like a year, how many hours those employees wasted looking for the parts that he'd hidden from them,
I
you
don't
know?
know,
Just that
but
efficiency gain alone would be fun to see.
but think about the other application. Like in many businesses, like let's say the owner creates a process, they have a documentation for getting budgets approved or different things like that, and then they hide it from their team.
Yeah.
They won't tell them how it works, or you hold all of that decision making yourself, and you won't delegate, you won't empower your team to actually help you build your business, and you hold all that together. It's the exact same thing. Like
Mhm.
in this situation, because we're dealing with physical items, it's easy to see because we it's not so abstract.
Yeah.
But I'll bet there's places in your business where you're doing the exact same thing.
And then you turn around and you say, "Ah, I just can't find anyone that can replace me. It's gonna take me to do this. There's no one else."
Yep.
As you're hoarding all this stuff and you're trying to hold it all in your arms and you're walking around looking at everyone else and saying, "No one else can carry all this garbage like I can." And your
Yep.
team's
So
over here wondering, like, "I wonder if he wants me to hold one of those."
right. And so when we looked at like some of the things that were gone, it's like, well, this guy's not going to be that challenging to replace.
Mm,
And it's very easy to put in a system where a form goes out with each job, the employees get trained. You don't get to go through the stack. You do them in order. Well, what does that do? Well, we know they're doing them in order. Anytime we want, we can go out and check. Or at the end of the day, all the completed, parts get brought into the office, and so we know exactly where each project is at, and we can communicate with the customer cleanly and say, "Hey, this is where your project's at," um, and all the other benefits that come with that. And so as you work up that replacement ladder and get a lot of hours of low value activities off your plate, you've got to bring new things on. And these are the kinds of things that you need to look for. Do you have artisans in your company where each person is required to have a huge depth of knowledge in order for things to work? Well, how many companies do you know say it's really hard to find good people?
Lots.
Well, if you're requiring this huge depth of knowledge for every employee, yeah, it is really hard. But what if they only have to learn a slice? Is it going to be, I mean, it's obvious, but is it going to be easier or harder to find someone to do just a slice than it is to when you need somebody to be able to do the entire thing from end to end?
Right. And what's amazing is people often, there's the core function that requires that specialty skill or that specialty knowledge. A
Mhm.
doctor's got to know medicine, a dentist has to know teeth, a designer has to know design, a machinist has to know the machines and how it all works. But like you're saying, there's a bunch of ancillary parts that relate to that that you can take and pull off and get down to that core piece and let them focus on that core piece and let the ancillary parts be someone else's core piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you learn to break it up and you get away from having artisans, then you're able to hire much more effectively. It's easier. You don't have to pay as much. You don't need the same caliber of people, and your training is easier, which means the people that you are bringing on have more opportunities as well, because there's cross training and there's room for their growth. You don't need them to come in being an expert day one
Yep.
to get a benefit out of them, and the turnaround time for you to know whether or not they're actually going to work out is also a lot smaller.
Hmm.
So all kinds of benefits in doing that, and these are and I'm kind of going a roundabout way, but I'm going to call it out now. All I'm talking about is using theory of constraints.
And many people might not know what that even is.
I mean, it's something that's talked about by a lot of people, but yeah, that is the issue. A lot of people don't know what it is. It's a management theory that was developed by a physicist, and it's been applied to manufacturing, but it applies everywhere in business and life. It's a really simple theory, which is basically the idea, um, that only by improving the weakest link in a chain can you make that overall chain stronger. There's a weak link in your business. If you've solved it that it's not you because you're working up that replacement ladder, so you know it's not you as a business owner, then it's going to be somewhere else in your business. And so you can ask yourself some simple questions to zero in on where that is. And one of the questions is, if my book of business doubled or tripled or increased by 10 times tomorrow, what would break? Would I be really excited because all of a sudden I can actually fill my capacity and actually start delivering? Or would my lead time go from 2 weeks to 6 months? And by getting the answer to that question, you can know, well, if your book of business doubled tomorrow and delivery was fine, then you need more business. But if your book of business doubled tomorrow and your lead time went way out, well, then you need more capacity on the delivery side, being able to actually produce. And that's a really simple question. And then you can zero in from there. If it ends up being you need more business, well, what's the quality of your leads? How many leads are you getting? You know, the quantity and the quality. What are your conversion rates? How many how what I mean, what are the close rates on the offers that you're making to people? And you can really start to look at each component piece and figure out where the constraint is. And that enables you to put all of your resources behind that piece instead of simply working on whatever's screaming the loudest,
Hmm.
which is what most business owners do. They'll either work on what's screaming the loudest, which isn't necessarily the constraint, or they'll work on what they're comfortable with. And that's why I see so many people like they're running on a treadmill. with their business. They're working really, really hard, burning a lot of energy, but they're not getting anywhere.
Right. Yeah, and I think that one way to visualize that is the like the bottle, and you're gonna pour the liquid out. That bottle is called a bottleneck, and the bottleneck in your business is that spot that slows it down. That's what theory of
Mhm.
constraints all about is where is that bottleneck at, and how do you make that bottleneck have more ability for flow? And then you'll find the next one and the next one and the next one. And it's literally like you've just got a chain of all of these bottles pouring, and it pours from one bottle into the next, into the next, and the next. And one of them along that chain is the one that slows everything else down. But
Right,
a
whichever
person
whatever the smallest
oftentimes,
bottleneck is.
yeah, a person oftentimes will work on the one, like you said, they're most comfortable with or screams the loudest, and they think that it's a problem because they're focusing on it and they're not paying attention to all the other bottlenecks that could be out there to see, oh no, it's actually this one over here or this one over here that's a real problem. But I'm so focused in on this one thing, that's all I ever fix.
Well, which brings to another skill that business owners have to learn, and it's a really, really hard one to learn, and it's being able to identify the difference between a kitchen fire and a dumpster fire.
Hmm.
If your kitchen's on fire and you don't react quickly, you're going to lose your house. If there's a dumpster fire and you don't react immediately, there's a little smoke. Like,
You have a
it
little
doesn't
less
matter.
trash in the can.
I mean, at the end of the day, you can let dumpster fires burn, but kitchen fires you can't.
Yeah.
The problem we have is most business owners treat every fire they recognize as a kitchen fire, and so they end up focusing on putting out the wrong kinds of fires. You can let a fire burn. Like and I'll say that again because it's really important. You can let fires burn. You do not have to put them out unless it's a kitchen fire. So if there might be some conflict in your team, for example. If it's at the level of a kitchen fire, then you better step in and do something about it. But if it's just a level of dumpster fire, let them work it out. Let them learn. Let them build. Let them figure things out on their own, and you'll actually strengthen your business. Whereas if you were to immediately run in and put that dumpster fire out, what'd you just do? You just cut the legs out from every single team member.
Yep, yep. So we might need to cover how to tell when it's a dumpster versus kitchen fire at some point and really help people dive into that and assess that in their own life and business.
Well, and I think that's really what I'm trying to do. So we take this investor frame.
Mhm.
So if you can get yourself into that investor frame, if you were not the owner of your business, if you were looking at it from the outside, if you can take yourself and look at your business from the outside, what would you fix? Would you be excited to buy the business? For how much? Like what do you see as the biggest issues, and what are the things that you're excited most about for the business? You know, vision, focusing on the constraint and making sure that everything just keeps going, and but allowing those dumpster fires to burn because they're not critical. They may smell bad, but they're not going to burn your business down.
Right,
That
right.
enables you to actually have the resources to work on the things that will move your business forward, so you can get off a treadmill and actually start making real progress.
I love it. And we're just about out of time. You got 1 minute. Anything you want to close with, or are we good?
I think we're good. Yeah, that's other than just the invitation again. Send us your questions. Like, I'd love to answer your questions specific to your business, not hypotheticals, like the real questions. And if you want to send a private message with more details that you don't want to share openly, we will. I mean, we'll keep the information contained, but we would love to answer your questions on stream and be able to help you grow your business specifically.
Perfect. I love it.
So, thanks.
Thank you. See ya.